and hello, good afternoon, everyone. So, by the
Good
way,
afternoon,
I
sir.
will be the first speaker for this afternoon. And based on what Ma'am Ethel said a while ago, that I will be discussing one of the core behavioral competencies in our self-assessment tool for teachers, which is required for our results-based performance management system. So, if you are curious or something, there's something on your mind, why do we have to discuss this matter? Because later on, I will be calling Ma'am Rachel Guanzon to explain the reason why do we have to discuss this certain topic. Okay, so by the way, I am Renz Angelo Di Calzada, Senior High School Special Science Teacher of Mabini National High School, and I will be discussing to you the results focus. So let me share my screen first. Can you see now the screen? Can you see now the presentation?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay, thank you so much. So again,
Yes,
I will be
sir.
discussing about results focus. And for this afternoon, I am expecting to have an interaction with one another to those people who are present in this Zoom platform. So mamaya, tatawag ako ng mga pangalan kasi if I will be asking for a volunteer to answer, para ako nag-talk sa parang isang room na walang tao. So I will be calling later. Don't worry. As much as possible, the goal of this discussion is for us to reflect about our performance from the previous school year and for this school year. So mamaya, most probably, I will be asking you about your specific experiences with regards to the core behavioral competency that we will be discussing this afternoon. Okay, so let me proceed to the next slide. So as what I have said, we will touching one of the core behavioral competencies in our results-based performance management system. But let us discuss first what is core behavioral competency. So this is the success of the employee in fulfilling his or her role and delivering exceptional performance is dependent on how he or she applies various competencies on the job. The employee is rated based on the effectiveness and consistency by which he or she demonstrates behaviors relevant to the competencies. As we all know, these core behavioral competencies, we are the one who rated or assessed ourselves. Diba? Doon sa ating sa ISAT nato, kita man nagbuot dito what specific points that we are going to give to a particular core behavioral competency. So what are these core behavioral competencies? So based on the ESAT, on our self-assessment tool, we have 6 core behavioral competencies, and these are the self-management, professionalism, and ethics. Number 3 is results focus. Number 4 is teamwork. Number 5 is service orientation. And number 6 is innovation. So I believe after my talk, another core behavioral competency will be discussed later by Ma'am Jeanette and Ma'am Elgina Amasa. So for now, let us focus on this particular core behavioral competency, which is the results focus. Now, let me ask Ma'am Grazel Guanzon, since she is our master teacher one, and she was the one who consolidated all our scores or points in that particular self-assessment tool that we have submitted to her. So let us ask her, why are we discussing this specific core behavioral competency? Ma'am Grazel, is she around?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Sir Renz, for that question. Why do we have to value or give importance to this core behavioral competencies? Because as what we have discussed now on the first day of our Mpre, this is all about our values. And if you could still remember on the right side of the DepEd framework, the how, this is all about the values, the competencies, and and as you have noticed, the quality of a teacher is in the core of this framework. It is our behavior that is must be improved, must be enhanced for us to achieve the vision, mission of the DepEd, and to inline all our activities, all our work to the PPST, the Philippine Standard for Teachers, Goals and Mission. Sir Renz,
Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am
would it
Grazel, for that explanation. So basically, we are going to discuss results focus, which is one of the core behavioral competencies in our self-assessment tool for the results-based performance management system. It's because it is the core behavioral competency that got the least score as being consolidated by our master teacher, and that is the results focus. That's why we really have to give emphasis on these core behavioral competencies and be reminded on its components, and of course be aware on how we are going to cope up for us to be confident enough to increase our score and be competent enough to be so-called as result focused teacher. Because based on what I have read, this result focus, you cannot just develop this one or get overnight. This is a trait that has to be developed by a teacher or a worker in a certain organization or institution. That's why results focus is very important. Now let's proceed on the next slide. So now let me ask you, when you encounter the word results focus, what comes to your mind? So what comes to your mind when you encounter the word results focus? Sige nga, if there's a volunteer, kindly unmute yourself. And if there's no volunteer, I will be calling somebody. Okay? So who would like to share what comes to your mind when you encounter, hear, or read the word results focus? Anyone? Okay, in the count of 3, 2, 1. Wala. Sige, let us call somebody to give us an answer. Okay, let me call, sige, since Ma'am Ethel is our host. So Ma'am Ethel, what comes to your mind when you encounter the world results focus?
Hello, sir. Wala ako jud una.
Sige lang, good. Ano lang, kahit ano. Kapag, when you hear the word results focus, what comes to your mind?
Our performances, sir.
Okay, our performances. Okay, let us call another. Let us have Ma'am Clarissa Remolino. Ma'am Clarissa, are you there? What comes to your mind when you encounter the word results focus?
The first thing that comes to mind po is outcome or a result po. So there will be a result after.
Okay, outcomes or result. Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Clarissa. Let's call another last. Okay, is Ma'am Elone Mainantay around? Ma'am Elone, what comes to your mind when you encounter the word results focus? Okay, nandito ba si Ma'am Elone? Okay, so let's call another. Let's have Ma'am Frances, Elaine. Ma'am Frances, are you there? What comes to your mind?
Yes, good afternoon po.
Good
Sige
afternoon,
po.
Ma'am Frances.
A measure of excellence po, sir.
Come again, ma'am.
A measure of excellence.
Okay, measure of excellence. So thank you so much. So those 3 words that our teachers have given, those are related to results focus. But for us to understand well what results focus is all about, let us try to define this core behavioral competency. So when we say results focus, that is a concern for surpassing a standard of excellence. The standard may be one's own past performance, which is striving for improvement. Third, an objective measure, achieve or achievement orientation. And we have also here challenging goals that one has set, or even improving or surpassing what has already been done, or continuous improvement. So we are talking about, results focus, which is a trait that a certain teacher in the Department of Education must possess. So when we talk about results focus, this ang pinaka what do you call that one, ma-associate ko when it comes to this, or let's say I could compare with results focus, is the outcomes based education, which is actually the Department of Education and other educational institutions have been using as they implement their lessons and different learning competencies to the students. Why did I compare to OBE? Because in OBE, diba, that's the basis of our what you call this one, learning competencies. In our learning competencies, it is already stated there that at the end of the lesson, these students must acquire the specific, or must develop a what we call this one, to attain this specific learning competency. Or even as we develop our lesson plan, di ba? At the very beginning, as we write our lesson plan, ang pinakauna talagang ginasulat natin, or our main concern is about our learning objectives, di ba? As much as possible, there should be cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. Yun makita natin dapat doon sa ating objectives. Why do we have this? Why do we have to, to make emphasis on the objectives? Because these are the things that you want to achieve at the end of the lesson that you are going to have in your class. And of course, these objectives must also be presented to the students so that they will know what they are going to expect at the end of the lesson. Kumbaga, you are already giving them what they need to do. Okay, what they need to do for them to acquire this specific objective. And that is also very related or very similar to results focus as teachers, because we all know that we have our duties and responsibilities. And I believe this is a commitment since we are employed in the Department of Education. Then therefore, there are corresponding works that we have to portray. And these work has to be done very well. We talk about quality, and of course, this has also to be done on time. Diba? When we talk about a specific report that has to be submitted and a specific deadline, so that's it. Okay, so let's talk more about results focus. So results focus, this works to achieve an outcome, just like what I've said a while ago. It is about aligning the individual's key skills and setting plans for the delivery of certain results. Okay, so when we say results focus, here are some of the characteristics. So first, achieves those results in order to be successful within their work. Second, continuously sets realistic goals to further themselves within their work. Number three, very open-minded and has strong relationship building skills. And number four, demonstrates flexible approaches to work. So if we're going to, to understand all these things, para bang this has something to do with setting goals. Hindi lang sa not only a long term, but this is much more applicable to a short-term goals. Being a teacher, for example, when you go to school during your on-site, so di ba hindi ka naman pupunta sa school nang wala kang gagawin, because as much as possible, you have to set or you have to plan what are the things that you have to do pagdating mo sa school. Hindi naman pwedeng, it doesn't mean that we don't have face-to-face classes, wala ka nang gagawin. Of course, some of the things that we have to do, of course, checking the papers, communicating with the students, or di kaya you conduct classes, or di kaya you have a certain activity to manage in school, di ba? So those are the things. But of course, you cannot just do anything you want. You have to set your priorities based on the timeline or based on the deadline. This is one of the talagang problems of, most people, not only teachers, when there is a specific report that has to be submitted, even though you already know when it has to be submitted, dili gyapon nimo siya buhaton because you are prioritizing other things. Para bang, ay, ayoko mang gawin ito. Kahit na alam mo nang, ay, isubmit na pala ito bukas, awag mo na. So, di ba, parang you are procrastinating, which is very bad. Though I am also guilty of that. Pero as much as possible, we should not, we should not practice that one because it will affect the productivity of ourselves. So, productivity being a teacher, di ba? Okay. Okay, I will admit muna. Ayan. So now let's proceed to the next slide. So here are some of the, components in the core behavioral competency under the results focus. So in this part, we will try to read and analyze these components, and then I will be sharing my personal experience also. Kasi hindi naman these components may reflect what we have personally experienced as we do our work. And I believe each one of us are unique, and we have also we have our kanya-kanyang struggles, and your struggles are valid. That's why I will be asking you later on. So as much as possible, you try to give an answer based on your personal experience. So, di lang ta mag-ulaw-ulaw, no? Because kaning mga experiences na ni, I believe these may be true to all of us. And of course, these experiences may bring lessons to other teacher, di ba? And later on, as you share your experience, let us try to, to make some sort of solution as to how we are going to correct and to obtain the specific component under results focus. Okay, so let us begin with the first one. This is achieves results with optimal use of time and resources most of the time. So, diba, this is one of the examples I gave you a while ago, that being a teacher, we have to be very conscious of our time, especially when we are doing specific works na sobrang dami naman talaga. I cannot deny the fact that, when the pandemic started 2 years ago, we have been so loaded, bombarded with so many tasks, diba? So parang, nangapapud ta, we are trying to, to adapt on the new normal setup in our work. But of course, we teachers, as much as possible, we have to, to adjust to what is now, because first of all, this is our work and we are committed to do our work. Ayan. So achieves results with optimal use of time and resources most of the time. Ang pinaka talaga dito is, ang pinaka unang papasok sa mind ko is time management, which is ang hirap ang hirap i-achieve. Knowing that, all of us have kanya-kanyang roles. Some of us are aside from being a teacher, some of us are parents, mother, father, you are a brother, a sister, anak pug ka, and meron ka ding ginagawa sa bahay niyo. So talagang sometimes malibog ka, unsa man di unahon ako. But of course, just like what I've said a while ago, we are committed in our job. That's why we have to do the task that is being assigned to us. And ako personally, talagang when the pandemic started, sobrang hirap i-manage ng time. Hindi ko alam, pero ako lang ba? Sobrang dami natin ginagawa. I don't know. Especially when you conduct online classes, before when you go to class, you can just, teach without props. All you need to do is to present yourself, the knowledge that you have. As much as you have the chalk, you write it on the board, then you explain well to your students that's it. Pero ngayon, when you do online classes, you cannot go to that online platform if you are not prepared. You must have your, your visual aids, your PowerPoint presentation. Kasi, you don't know what are these students doing when they are at home. And we all know that the attention span of our students are very, very, very limited, especially on their age right now. So talagang, as much as possible, you have to prepare your PowerPoint presentation as much as possible. You do it very, very captivating, aesthetic, so that ang attention nila nandoon. And as much as possible, you should not make the class boring. And kana pa lang siya, it is very time consuming. When I create a PowerPoint presentation, it may took me like around 3 hours before I can perfect everything or more than 3 hours pa. So sobrang hirap talaga. Aside from doing these things, meron ka pa talagang ibang ginagawa. For example, ako, I'm also, you know, I am designated as an SSG advisor. Siyempre, hindi ko naman pwedeng pabayaan yun sila. Knowing that the situation of my officers, they don't have laptop, they don't have these gadgets, they don't have the knowledge to do particular tasks that has something to do with their responsibilities. So, my role here is to really guide them or as much as possible do some of the things that they are supposed to be doing kasi most of the time our programs are conducted virtually. So talagang very challenging siya. So it's a matter of time management and prioritizing what should be done first, 'di ba? So those are my experiences. Let me ask somebody na naman from the group who would like to share kaya about, it doesn't have to be perfect. I know all of us na ating mga problems when it comes to managing our time sa atong trabaho. So let me ask somebody. Let me ask the new teachers since they are new. So kumusta? Let us try to, ask them how's their work. Let's ask Ma'am Anna Lovely Caminade. Are you there, Ma'am Lovely?
Good afternoon, sir.
Hi. Hello.
Sir, good afternoon.
Hi, ma'am. Good afternoon. So, mamumusta ka, ma'am? Kumusta ka ba sa iyong sa iyong, how many weeks or months have you been teaching in in Mabini?
Mag 2 months po, sir.
Okay, 2 months. Okay, so kumusta? Let's focus on this component. Can it achieves results with optimal use of time and resources most of the time? So kumusta ka when it comes to, managing your time, addressing the concerns of the students, addressing their queries, checking the papers and everything. So as much as possible, I want you to be honest, so that, everything will be relatable. Yes, ma'am. Lovely.
Naga-adjust pa jud, sir. Like, kanang
Sige, go.
new, kanang kami ni Ma'am Sonza, kay kanang very new pag ni sa amua, and then labi na kanang sa pag-check sa papers, and then every Thursday kay mag-releasing, and then mag-apas jud mi sa mong himuon, to be honest.
Okay, thank you so much,
Tapos ang
ma'am.
mga forms,
Ma'am Lovely.
yes.
Ayan, so, Ma'am
Tapos
Lovely
ang mga
shared to
forms,
us.
pag sir, kay kanang dili pa jud.
Okay, come again, ma'am?
Yes po, kanang dili pa jud ani sa mga forms po kay dili pa sad mi kanang kabalo jud gani dayon, sir. So mangutana pa jud mi sa mga colleagues, sir, and we're very grateful po kay kanang tubagon po jud mi nila, i-entertain nila mga questions.
Ayan, thank you so much, Ma'am Lovely. So, I believe you encountered some of the problems. Meron ka mga problems with regards to your work as to how you're going to do them, on time. So, can you share to us, Ma'am Lovely, what are your mechanisms for you to cope with this, with these problems? Kasi I believe being a teacher, as much as possible, we have to look for a solution to the problem arising in our work. So what are, some of the mechanisms that you are doing?
Like what you've said, sir, kay kanang about time management, among ginahimo ni Ma'am Sonza is ginalist down na mo ang mga task na una dapat ihimuon or ipasa, and then maghimo mi kanang to-do list gani every day. So dapat man mi magstoryahan na ming duha, since kami man duha ang bag-o na kanang kanina adlaw mo ni among himuon, ana, sir.
Yes. Thank you so much, Ma'am Lovely. So you are very lucky, no, kasi dalawa kayo ni Ma'am Sarah. So it's also a good thing, no, na ka na magtabangay mo. You remind each one another, of what are the things that you have to be done within this particular day. And it is also a good, practice. Kana ganing magsulat ka on what are the things that you have to do. You know what? I've been doing that kasi sa sobrang dami. Sometimes you don't know. Makalimtan na nimo unsay mga dapat imong buhaton sa so dili jud mawala ang notebook sa ako ang atubangan. Dapat nandyan talaga. I have to write kasi when you write, I don't know if ako lang, kasi if I write the things that I have to do, ma-remember na ko siya, okay, yun yung sinulat ko. I will not be get out of track of the things that I have to do, di ba? So let me ask another teacher coming from the teachers who are present in this platform. So ayan, let us ask Sir Herbie. Sir Herbie, nandiyan ba si Sir Herbert? Hello,
Sir
nandiyan ba si Sir?
Renz?
Hi, Sir
Yes,
Herbert.
Sir Renz.
Hi. So, Sir Herbert, I want you to share some of your experiences, no, as you do your work as a teacher, especially on managing your time. Did you encounter some problems as you do your work when you manage your time?
Yes, Sir Renz.
Sige daw, can you state some of
Sometimes,
the, specific experience that you have?
sometimes, Renz, may mga activities and mga tasks kasi na beyond sa ako ang ginabutang nga schedule. Example, I manage my time. So I made a schedule kung ano yung gagawin ko for today. Pero may mga instances kasi na kailangan may isubmit na ganito, ganyan, example sa cluster, no? Wala sa schedule mo, tapos kailangan isubmit ang ganito. So ano na naman yung isang task na gagawin suppose sa given schedule na akong prepare pero maunahon sa to na ako tong ginapahimo sa cluster. So kana ang mga experiences na ako usahay when I manage my time.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much, Herbie. So that is really true, no? Kada ganing mga pasahon na kanang pina-abrupt, then talagang nakakainis. Char, nakakainis talaga. Pero you have no choice but you have to insert it in your in your schedule, and you really have to, that's the time na magkarakara na ka. Ano ba talagang uunahin? Lalo na ngayong pandemic, usong-uso yung mga ganyang pero anyways, so talagang it's about time management, no? Hindi lang naman kasi teacher tayo. We are also portraying other roles in our house, in other places, di ba? So you have to lend time po, no, sa ubang mga butang, especially to those teachers who are already married, na meron ng mga anak. Of course, you have to give time for your children, especially kung mga gagmay pa sila, you really have to guide them as they do their modules, diba? You check on them. Siyempre, yung asawa, hatagan po din mong time. Then sa mga single po, diba? It is also time-consuming when you are, looking for a partner. Char, char lang. Pero yeah, it is time-consuming. And, time management is really important. Okay? Now, let's proceed on the next component. That is avoids rework, mistakes, and wastage through effective work methods by placing organizational needs before personal needs. Ayan. So talaga namang this is one of the, hindi naman talaga siya problem ng nakararami. But, sometimes we do experience this one. For example, we have some reports to do. There are instances na kanang magkamali ka, 'di ba? And that's normal because tao lang naman din tayo. So that's why it is really important no, that we really have to check our work, 'di ba? Especially when we do some learning materials that is given to the students. So as much as possible, we really have to review it well kasi hindi naman tayong pwedeng magbigay ng mga materials na mali-mali, 'di ba? That's why meron tayong tinatawag na merong mga nag-evaluate, merong what do you call that one? The error task force, merong ganyan. But aside from that, aside from errors, no, also concern po siguro sa mga teachers about submitting the reports on time. So, pareha ng sinabi ni Sir Pio kanina, I will just make it as an example. When you submit your reports, especially your DTRs, so as much as possible, gawin natin siya, di ba? Pinapasa natin yan siya on the third day of the month. So we really have to bear in mind that on the third day, o di kaya kung hindi kaya talaga ng third day, so as much as possible within the first week of the month, we really have to submit our DTR and other attachments, especially our individual work accomplishment report. So di ba? So meron ding mga ibang reports na kailangang I know hindi dapat tayo mamali, especially when we do the, anong tawag dyan, yung mga, what do you call that one? The permanent records, the report cards, di ba? Yun, talagang hindi dapat mali. Di ba? Kaya we have this checking, no, na ginagawa natin at the end of the quarter or at the end of the school year. We do that one to ensure that our reports, especially the permanent records and the report cards, are error-free. Di ba? Okay, so let us proceed on the next component, and this is delivers error-free outputs most of the time by conforming to standard operating procedures correctly and consistently, able to produce very satisfactory quality work in terms of usefulness, acceptability, and completeness with no supervision required. This is quite related to the second component, but you know, I would just like to emphasize the last words here. Able to produce very satisfactory quality work in terms of usefulness, acceptability, and completeness with no supervision required. Since we are under the division of Davao City, under the Department of Education, we're under, the administration of the Mabini National High School, then therefore, whatever the guidelines or whatever, these guidelines that they give us that we have to follow to do our task and some of the reports that we are submitting. So talagang kailangan nating, we really have to follow and dili dapat na magbuot-buot, syempre. And kung hindi mo alam, that's the time that you are going to ask. Especially if, for example, to the new teachers, parang nang sinabi kanina ni Ma'am Lovely, she's having a hard time, no, to identify some of the forms, medyo nalilito pa siya. Of course, you really have to ask. But of course, for most of the teachers here, since we are very familiar already, that's why we are having this, Mpre, to be reminded, for us to recall what are the things that we have to be portraying, to be doing, especially when it comes to the reports, different school forms that we are submitting. So kailangan we are very familiar of it and we know how to accomplish it within ourselves. Diba? Okay. So let me ask some of the teachers, have you encountered magkamali ka? This is something to do with, I don't know, with some, attitude when because there are some people, I'm not generalizing everyone. There are some people na kanang siguro when they commit mistake or error in a particular thing that they do, especially in their job, tapos when they are being corrected, merong iilan na they got offended, di ba? And siguro that is normal reaction to a certain individual. But of course, we should not take it as negatively kanang anak na butang because, we are in this certain organization and as much as possible, we have to learn all the things and as much as possible, we should not submit, kanang mga mali-mali na mga reports. And I believe that the best way we can learn things is through, committing a mistake or committing an error. Because once we commit a mistake, the next thing that we're going to do is we will not do it again. Diba? So I think we should bear that in mind. Siguro that's one of the things that we really have to practice, no? Let's take it constructively. We should not take it personally. Diba? Kasi especially kapag work-related na mga bagay, so let us try one another. You try to accept the opinion of other people and you try to reflect within yourselves. Okay, yeah, ako pala yung mali. So let me change what I have, nakagisnan. So of course, we are doing all these things for the betterment of our institution, our school. We're not doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for, for your co-teacher. We are doing it for the school itself. And of course, our main, clientele, the students. Okay, now let's proceed on the fourth one. Express a desire to do better and may express frustration at waste or inefficiency. May focus on new or more precise ways of meeting goals set. Ito, talagang we experience, all of us, we experience this one na kanaganing naman yung mga times na kanang we fail to do things. But of course, we should not get discouraged by that certain experience. Instead, we should, use it as a motivator or as an inspiration for us to do better. Let me ask some teachers here. Let me ask some of your experiences. If meron na ba kayong mga, meron kayong, as you do your work, do you experience na kanang nagkamali ka? Tapos, how did you address to that mistake? And what are the mechanisms that you did to correct that one? Sige daw, let me ask somebody. Okay? It doesn't mean na kapag tatawagin mali-mali ang gawa. This is just based on experience. Even I experienced that also. I do have mistakes a lot. But of course, it's like what I've said, we have these mechanisms for us to correct our mistakes. Sige, let me call ito si Ma'am Hana, being the designated HR. Ayan. Is Ma'am Hana around? Hi, Ma'am Hana. Hello, Ma'am Hana. Can you hear me? Ma'am Hana? Okay, so I think medyo may problem yata sa audio si Ma'am Hana kasi naka-turn on yung audio na. Let me call another. Let's have Ma'am ito si Ma'am Cherry kasi I believe Ma'am Cherry is really gahot when it comes to teaching her grade 7 students in their science lessons, and of course catering also her duties and responsibilities being the clinic in charge. So Ma'am Cherry ko, good afternoon. Can you hear me? Nandito ba si Ma'am Cherry?
Yes, hello, Sir Renz.
Hi, Ma'am Cherry.
Bago lang ko nabot sa school.
Ay,
Bago lang ko
okay.
nabot sa school kay maghatag kog mga medical certificate.
Okay. Sige. I will not disturb you.
DTR. Wala ko focus sa imong
Yeah,
story.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sorry.
Sige. Let's call another. Let's have... Sino pa bang nandito? Okay, meron ba dito si Ma'am Jan Violet? Ma'am Jan, are you there?
Yes, Sir Renz.
Hi, Ma'am Jan. Good afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Kumusta ka so far? Are you doing great?
Oo.
Sige, Ma'am Jan, I have a question. So, I just want to ask if you have some, experiences. Have you experienced since, especially this, kind of new normal? Have you encountered some, for example, you submitted a particular report or anything related to your work na nagkaroon ka ng error or mistake? And how did you cope up with that error for it to be corrected?
Ano lang po, sir. I think it
how
was
did you
concerning
react with it? Yes, ma'am.
how did I
Paano mo siya
Ano yun, Sir
in-address? Ganun na lang. How did you address it?
hingi ako ng pasensya and na sorry na mali ako, and then mas tinutukan ko yung work ko. Actually, I think it was related sa grado. Hindi ko na
Okay.
na-update yung nagpasa na pala yung student, and then na mali yung grade.
Okay. Yeah, so it has something to do with your teaching, no, Ma'am Jan Violet. Thank you so much, Ma'am Jan, for sharing
Yes,
your
sir.
experience, no. Thank you so much, Ma'am Jan. Now, I think Ma'am Janet is raising her hand. Yes, Ma'am Janet, would you like to say something? Would you like to share your experience?
So, ibang experience ito, sir. I salute,
Okay, go
I
ahead.
salute Herbie Delgado. Sometimes, sir, sa form, sir, nagkamali
Okay,
siya,
Ma'am
pero
Janet.
sa form. Tapos, kinonfirm ko siya sa mga mali. Pero actually,
Yes.
the beauty of Mr. Delgado, hindi pa rin nagbabago. So, positive siya sa mga confirmation ko na mali ang kanyang trabaho. Yun lang ang example ko.
Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Janet, no, which is a good attitude, of course, that, we try to conform to these, to these problems, no, and of course, we have to react positively. We should not take it, negatively and act negative on it, especially that this is something to do with work. I believe na kapag there is something problem, pag-uusapan lang, and I believe everything will be resolved. Okay, thank you so much, Ma'am Janet, for sharing that one. Let's have Ma'am Jeanette. She's raising her hand. Good afternoon, Ma'am Jeanette. Ma'am Jeanette, nandyan pa ba si Ma'am Jeanette? Parang nawala yata.
Okay, wala na ako
Ayan, Ma'am Jeanette.
unmute. Ayan. So good afternoon, everyone. I would just like to share this experience. Recently lang talaga siya nangyari kasi naka-home quarantine kasi ako for about a week, no? Tapos may deadline kasi kaming dapat i-submit sa GAD using the COA Google Drive. So last Monday, so pagbalik ko, so I need to submit the report. Kaya lang, I don't have yet the idea on how to prepare everything, though my given template na siya. So what I did is, I look for examples sa cluster 2 rapod ko nanguha, nananaw ko, and I tried to use the template of DRANS. Kasi kilala ko naman si Sir, yung God din nila. So it so happened na instead of copying it, i-download na ko siya, then copy, na-delete na ko ang ilang file. And it was in the Google Drive of COA. So what I did, gi-message dayon ako si Sir Joseph. Sabi ko na, Sir, pasayloan lang yun ko, Sir. Sir, kabaluwe, ka nag-apas ko kasi kanang murag kita na lang po ang kulang ato ba. So nayan ako sa ihan na, Sir, sorry kaayo, Sir, na dyan ko'y nabuhat nga mali sa inyong data. Dili ko sure kung na-delete tanan or basta na ako, murag na ako'y na-delete, Sir. So, nakulbaan ako no kay basi makasabaan ko ni Sir Joseph, and he was also very nice good no kana niana siya na, ma'am ayaw lang sigig, sorry ma'am kay wala man to siya natuyo, and anyway naman mi ato nga data ma'am, so dali lang mo pud siya kaayo pag-upload, so dili kay siya big problem daw. So ko sayo, Sir, thank you kaayo. So anyway, nakasubmit ko, and so far murag wala man ni comment si Sir nga nawala silang data. So basig na lang ko'y namali og pindot. So kana lang. So good lang food kay very open pud ang tao nga ako ang gi-ask no nga nag-ask man pud og help sa iya para makasubmit na gyud ta. So kana lang.
And thank you so much, Ma'am Jeanette, for sharing your experience. So kana jud no, especially kapag Google spreadsheet, so there is really a tendency na kanang nakay matuplok tapos ma-erase ang data dahil sa Google spreadsheet kasi kapag once you change, automatically it will be saved. But anyway, that is also a good trait no of Ma'am Jeanette, that she really approached immediately the in charge of that spreadsheet. And of course, we should, ato kung i-acquire ang attitude ni Sir no kanang it doesn't mean nagkamali ka, imuda yung singhagana. Bakit ka ganyan, di ba? So, you approach it, lightly lang and try to understand what happened. Kasi yun naman talaga ang pinaka-best thing na gagawin. Di ba? Okay, so thank you so much for the people who share their experiences, no? And of course, all of us experience these things, but as much as possible, let us try to, develop our character, our, what do you call this one, this particular trait that we have to, to do something on the mistakes that we have done. We should not be frustrated, especially gani karong kanang naga-online class ta, and kani distance learning, we're in the new normal education. To be honest, I am really frustrated during the 2020-2021. I don't know, kasi para bang na-set sa ako mind, I was being very ideal on the start of the new school year, the previous school year. Kanang nasa ko may kailangan I have to check everything, kailangan I have to give feedback immediately, I have to attend to my online classes, and I realized I cannot do them ng sabay-sabay pala. And it was really hard. So it is really important that you really have to, create a strategy na kung ganing dili ka ma burn out o at the same time you will address these problems. No, it is really important to strategize, you make some innovations within yourselves kasi by attending to some webinars also you can get some ideas coming from it, and you can also use it for yourself. And kani mga sharing na ginabuhat nato, this is very useful kasi there could be an experience that is being experienced by our teachers, and she had shared some ways how did she correct it or make it better. We could also learn from them. Okay, now let's proceed on the fifth component, and that is, okay. Okay, number 5 is make specific changes in the system or in own work methods to improve performance. Examples may include doing something better, faster, at a lower cost, most efficiently, or improving quality, customer satisfaction, morale, without setting any specific goal. I think this is really one of the characteristic or trait that we really have to practice, and to practice more on ourselves. Kaya ganing we should not only focus, or we should not only be used to on the things na kanang nakasanayan gani nato na buhaton before, especially that we are now in the new normal. Everything is online. Everything is, work is, some of the works or most of the works cannot be done without the use of internet connection. And especially karong panahon na, you really have to have a knowledge when it comes to operating some of the online platforms, especially kanang sa Zoom, kanang mga Google Drive, kanang mga Google Forms. So kailangan you really have to invest some of your time to learn all these things. Kasi if you will be hesitant, merong mga tao talaga na kanang, wag na natin gawin yan kasi maura mang gihapon, meron namang gagawa para sa akin. We are committed to do our responsibilities, and we have to portray our role being a teacher in the Department of Education, and you cannot just rely all the things that you need to be done on your co-teacher. You really have to learn some of these things, maski ginagmay lang man, even small steps, as much as the eagerness is within yourself to do better in your work, to make your work perfect, di man perfect, but the quality is there. And of course, making some of your work faster. Hindi naman, it doesn't mean na kanang ang imo buhaton na change should influence the entire school. Ang kailangan mong unang influensyahan ay ang sarili mo. Diba? Then, after you influence yourself, you make yourself better, you have this, you may present this one to your co-teacher na pwede niya ding magamit. And these innovations, can be very helpful on the performance of the administration and of course our school. Diba? Kung meron kang nagawa, do not be afraid to share it to other people. I believe that the administration, Sir Pio, our teachers, our heads would be very grateful if you share something na ganing has something to do on making our work better and faster. Nako, talagang they would really be glad on that, diba? And I believe also that when we have our promotion, also these things are very important. So talagang if you are really desiring to go to a higher position, then as early as now, you should be if you have some ideas within your mind when it comes to making an innovation to help the school, then you have to present it, diba? You record it. You make a paper out of it, then make it recognized, make it be recognized by by our superiors, diba? So those are the things that we really have to do. So those are the components under the results focus, which is one of the core behavioral characteristics characteristics. So let me just present to you some of the main characteristics of a result-driven individual. I know these things are very cliche. We have been encountering, hearing all these things pabalik-balik, but mind me, sometimes makalimtan natin ni sila. And you know, the main purpose of this talk talaga is to really, you know, to have a, what do you call that one? To reflect within yourself. Try to reflect what are the things that you have done in the school year, in the previous school year, that has affected your, you know, the delivering of your work, especially on delivering the results. Okay, so number one, we have here, result-driven people are focused to achieve their goals. It is really important that we really have to set our objectives, di ba? Meron tayong mga long-term goals. Sabi ko kanina, we have long-term goals, we have also short-term goals. Pero pinaka-importante talaga yung mga short-term goals, no, especially the things that we are doing from day to day. Importante, we have to list down what are the things that we have to do. And of course, kailangan nasa utak natin kung ano yung dapat mong magawa at the end of the day. It is very wrong kung you tend to jump from problem to problem. Wala kang matatapos niyan. Though it is also very important to focus on the process. Pero if you are not, you know, if this process, or if you have not planned very well, and you are not jotting down what are the things that has been happening along the process, then the quality of the work that you will be submitting at the end or achieving at the end would not be hindi maganda. Okay? So as much as possible, you have to bear in your mind what are the things you want to achieve at the end of the day, at the end of a particular span of time. Kasi by that, alam mo sa isip mo na kailangan mong gagawin yung gusto mong gagawin. Parang weird pakinggan, pero that's the point. Okay? Now let's proceed to the second one. People that are results-driven are usually motivated in their work, putting in the very best they can in order to accomplish their goals. Motivation. Such a big word. Sobrang hirap maghanap ng motivation. So I would just like to, you know, to give my experience. This has nothing to do with my work, but it has something to do with my sa akong graduate studies. I'm now on my thesis now, and talagang it's really difficult to focus, no, especially that you still have your work, tapos you still have other commitments, tapos gagawa ka pa ng thesis mo, and you know, researching is such a tedious work, hindi siya madali. Kailangan, as much as possible, you really have to give your all of your time on it. And syempre, hindi naman kasi basta-basta na, okay, I have to finish my thesis now. Tapos, pag open mong na laptop, wala kang motivation. So, sobrang hirap. No? So, as much as possible, you really have to look for motivation. Kumbaga, you try to think of, why are you doing this? Why do you want to graduate your masteral? Why do you want to finish this report? Kasi hihingin ito at the deadline. Kung hindi ka makasubmit at the deadline, anong mangyayari sa iyo? So my attention will be called by the principal. Mapapagalitan ako ng principal. So let us make that one as our motivation to, you know, to do our task very well and to finish it on time. Diba? Kasi sometimes we try to neglect na, okay, mapasa lagi ni nato. Pero naay mga instances, sabi ko kanina that, you know, naay mga times na kanang naay mo insert atong schedule na hindi natin di nato ma-anticipate. So kailangan, kung karon wala ka ginabuhat tapos meron kang isa-submit, gawin mo na. Ngayon na, agad-agad. Diba? Para dili ka ma-call mo attention. And of course, maling-mali kung ang mindset mo of finishing as much work as you can. So mali din yun. Yung parang pupunta ka sa school or sa work ng hindi mo alam yung gagawin mo, basta kayo mag-work. So, para bang you don't know ano talaga yung dapat mo ma-accomplish within the day. And of course, that could also result to a work na hindi matatapos. Kasi there is a tendency na kanang you will just hop from one work to another. boring na, ayoko na itong gagawin, kapagod mag-sort ng module, tapos releasing na bukas. O, diba? So, wala kang natapos. Okay? Now, let's proceed on the third one. A results-driven person is often realistic in their expectations and able to establish proper steps in order to achieve their goals. Of course, when we set our objectives in that particular day, what are the things that you have to do, kailangan achievable. Diba? Hindi naman din pwede na, ito gagawin ko ngayon, gagawin ko din ito. Tapos, you have to mind also the quality, the time that could possibly be spent on that particular activity that you will be doing on that particular day. So kailangan, as much as possible, you have to, you have a timeline, ito for this work, ito from 8 to 10 ito. Tapos ito na namang second activity ko, this is from 10 to 12. So kung ano lang yung nagkasya within the day, then yun lang din yung gagawin mo. And of course, we should be reminded also that we have to prioritize itong mga butang na doon ang deadline, of course. Then, I will be also showing you some of the tips on how to be results-driven in work. So these are very common, but of course, I would just like you to be reminded again. Number one, think of an end result before getting started. Okay, that's very important. Alam mo kung ano yung dapat mong gagawin, okay, within this day. Kasi you will be very result-driven, you will be result-focused if you know that there is a deadline. Kung alam mo na merong clear end point, at the end of the day, ano ba dapat yung mga result na makikita ko? Ano ba dapat yung mga things na na-accomplish ko? Then you also have to plan concrete outline. If you don't have a concrete outline or a plan, you can achieve these things. Diba? Then, ito, pinaka-importante, you really have to stick to your schedule. But of course, there is an exemption if there are some, mga pina-uptick na reports na ipasa na po. So that's another story, okay? Number two, make sure your results are measurable and review them from time to time, okay? I have already explained that one, so I think this is very sabotable already. Number three, leave no space for excuses. Do what you have to do to get the results delivered. Diba? Sometimes na murag musapi jud usahay kanang pagiging kanang procrastination, na mag-procrastinate ka ay unya na ni. Lawa na gani pagdagan pa kag time, for example, holiday. Holiday matulog sa ako nila lang ko magkuan. Diba? So nahurot ang time, especially kanang work from home. O diba? Aminin, kapag work from home, usay, lamig pa man matulog, tapos you really have to log in using the link, so dili na makalog in, makalimot. Tapos, pag matanin mo, magtanga sa kupadali. Andun at the end of the day, wala ka nang magawa. Kasi, feeling mo, sa bahay, wala akong trabaho. We have to bear in mind that we are working from home. So, we have to do the things that we are supposed to be doing. Okay? Ayan siya. So, those are the things, that, so some of the tips on how to be results driven in work. So I think my discussion will end here. Hopefully that you are reminded of the things on how you can achieve this particular trait to be results driven, results focused teacher, kasi it is one of the core behavioral competencies in our self-assessment tool for our results based performance in management system. And I believe also if you don't have these traits, then therefore you will not be considered as a performing teacher. Every one of us are expected to perform well according to our duties and responsibilities. And we cannot do all these things if we are not results focused. Okay? So before we end, I would like you to ponder and reflect upon this quote by Kenneth Blanchard. So according to him, there's a difference between interest and commitment. When you're interested in doing something, you do it only when it's convenient. When you're committed to something, you accept no excuses, only results. Okay? I believe we are all employees of the Department of Education and we are committed to do all our tasks under the Department of Education. So hopefully you learned something from today, and thank you so much for listening. And of course, thank you for paying attention to the discussion this afternoon.